Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today I'm going to be taking you through my January wrap-up, telling you all about what I thought about the 16 books that I read this past month in January. I had a pretty great reading month to kick off 2023, and I cannot wait to tell you about it. Before we get into the books, I do want to talk about my sponsor of today's video, which is Aura. So I am an internet person. Obviously, you are here watching me on the internet. And the funny thing about the internet is that anyone can find like anything here, including your full legal name, your address, your phone number, even your relatives. So I Googled myself and I was literally terrified that, people that I love, their information is coming up, and obviously people are going to be Googling me because I am an internet person, and knowing that my loved ones are at risk and their privacy is at risk was really scary for me. Basically, this information is accessible because of data brokers, and these are people who profit from selling your information to like telemarketers, robocallers, etc. So Aura is here to help with that. Aura identifies data brokers that are exposing your information, and they automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf. So no more spam emails. Those literally drive me insane. No more junk mail, no more telemarketers. It's honestly such a wonderful service and not something that we think about often, even though we're having to deal with these little annoyances pretty much on a multiple times a day basis, at least for me. Aura also monitors all of your email addresses and passwords to see if they were involved in a data breach. Like, these breaches happen all the time, and we definitely don't change our passwords often enough to make up for it. You can also see if your information is on the dark web, and they give you recommendations about what to do about it too. So it's not just like, hey, all your information's gone. They actually help you through it as well. Aura's app features a VPN, a password manager, identity theft monitoring, and protects your devices from malware. So it's really all-encompassing security. Let Aura do the hard work, keeping you safe online, where you can just relax and have fun. So start your 14-day free trial with Aura and see if any of your information has leaked online, and make sure that you are safe while you're browsing. So you can use my link to try Aura for free for 2 weeks. And you can see all of the data brokers that are using your information. Thanks so much to Aura for sponsoring this video. I think this is such a cool service and I highly recommend it. Now, let's go ahead and get into my January wrap up. So as I said, I read 16 books in the month of January. That was a total of 4,624 pages. And here's the mood breakdown. Always, always, we have dark, tense, and mysterious as the biggest pieces of my mood pie. As for pacing, most of the books that I read, 10 of them were medium paced and the other 6 were fast paced, no slow paced books at all this month. And 7 books were under 300 pages, while 9 books were between 300 and 500 pages. I read all fiction books this month, and yes, I'm still gonna include this graph even when I don't read any nonfiction, because that means I'm gonna get you. It's gonna sneak up on you. Whenever I have a nonfiction read in there, you're gonna be like, oh, it's not a pink circle? She's really slaying. She's an intellectual, but not this month. Here is my genre breakdown. Thrillers and horror are obviously at the top, along with some magical realism and literary fiction that I got into in January. But then this is a new stat that Storygraph just added, and it's where you can see the amount of tags that you use. So I have certain shelves that I will tag books to put like on a specific shelf, and I do mine by genre. And I also have one for YA books and for my 5-star reads. So this is how I shelved my books on my personal shelves this month. It's interesting that it said my top genre was thrillers, but I actually tagged more books as horror. And out of the 16 reviews that I posted in January, I had an average rating of 3.81 stars out of 5, which is pretty good. But my ratings kind of were all across the board. I had a 2-star, a 2.5 star, 2 3 stars, 2 3.5 stars, 6 4 stars, a 4.5 star, and 3 5-star reads to kick off the year. And then this is the breakdown of how I read those pages throughout the month. As you can see, I did not read for an entire week in January. I was just really, really busy planning my wedding and managing my practice at the beginning of the year. Taxes are really, really hard and they were kicking my ass. So I had to deal with all of that, and I basically took a week off of reading. But then that last weekend of January, as you can see, I literally read like 1,000 pages because I was like back on my game, out of my slump. So those are all the stats I have for you. Now let's go ahead and get into the book reviews, what you've been waiting for. As always, I'm gonna start with my lowest rated book and work our way up to my highest rated book. So you guys probably know what's coming in at my lowest rated spot. My 2-star book that I read in January was The Drift by CJ Tudor. And I read this one in my most recent new release thriller vlog. So I have a whole vlog talking about it with my full thoughts. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But basically, this is like an apocalyptic pandemic thriller following 3 different perspectives that are 3 people in these survival situations. One is a group of people trapped in a bus that ran into a snowdrift and crashed. One is a group of people trapped in a suspended cable car, and the third one is like an active shooter situation at a retreat. And somehow all 3 of these storylines are connected. And at the beginning, I would say like the first third, it was really fast paced and I was interested, but then it took a turn and I really just did not like the direction that it went. And throughout the book, I knew that the twists that were happening were like shocking, but because I had zero emotional connection to the characters, I did not care about the plot whatsoever. I'm really learning over the past year especially that I am such a character-driven reader, especially when it comes to horror and thrillers. To feel like the situation is high stakes, I have to have a solid connection with the characters, and that just did not happen with me and The Drift, so unfortunately I gave this one 2 stars. The 2.5-star book that I read this month was also in that vlog. The vlog was kind of a flop, if you can't tell, but that was All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham, and this is another thriller that follows a woman whose child has gone missing a year ago, and the police have kind of given up on the case, so she starts out doing this like true crime con circuit to get more eyes on the case, and she meets this guy who has a podcast, and they start diving in, seeing if they can figure out what happened to her son. Overall, it was just pretty repetitive, and a lot of the like information that was gathered was pretty convenient. I don't know. It was just like a very average, middle of the road thriller. I didn't hate it. I actually enjoyed the majority of my time reading it and listening to it because I also had the audio, but there was nothing super special about it, so I gave it that right down the middle rating of a 2.5. Next up, we have my 3-star books, the first of which is Goddess of Filth by V. Castro, and I was really excited to get into this author's work. Y'all know I love to support women in horror, and I've heard so many good things about this one. Unfortunately, it just didn't connect for me. I don't know why. I feel like we already know that I don't love paranormal stuff, but I usually do love like demonic possession kind of things. This book just felt a lot longer than it actually was. Like, I kept looking at the bottom of my screen of my Kindle being like, how does it say that I have 20 minutes left in this chapter? Like, what? And it's such a short book. I just felt like I was reading it for forever. The pacing did not work for me. I don't know. Maybe it needed a faster pace. Maybe some things could have been cut out. I don't know what it was. It was just the reading experience of this book that didn't quite connect, but the plot and the characters I absolutely loved. It's about this group of girls who are dabbling in demonic possession, and like they're doing little experiments at a sleepover when one girl literally gets possessed, which is what happens when you dabble in the occult. So it kind of reminded me of like a grown-up version of My Best Friend's Exorcism, but I think the pacing and the relationships between the characters in My Best Friend's Exorcism were just so amazing and hit me so hard that I was constantly comparing this one to that one. And because that's one of my favorite books of all time, this one just didn't quite connect. But I know it's a good book and I still highly recommend it, and I would love to read more from this author. It just wasn't all all the way there for me. A 3-star rating. It's not a bad book. Can't lie, I was disappointed that it didn't measure up to the hype that I had in my head, but c'est la vie. Moving on, we have Truth or Dare by R.L. Stine. This is a Fear Street book, and I also gave this one 3 stars. It was just a fun murder mystery, but I did predict what was happening. I'm not that mad that I predicted it because, you know, these are like YA books. They're not supposed to be like the most confounding literary masterpieces on the planet. But in this book, we're just following this group of teens who get stranded at a cabin in a snowstorm, and then they start turning up dead. It was like this very classic fast-paced locked door mystery, and I really liked it. I had a fun time with it, but there's just nothing like spectacular about it. It was predictable. I don't know. It was cute, it was fun, it was vibes, but it wasn't that serious. Next up, we have my 3.5 star rated books. So now we're getting into like, I would actively really recommend these books because I had a great time with them. There was just something kind of holding me back from that like 4-star solid, this is a good book feeling. The first of which is The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. I thought this one was so fun. I know it's not getting the best ratings, but I had a good time with it. It follows a dual timeline, one way in the past in this like Manson cult-esque kind of sex, drugs, and rock and roll vibe where this group of musicians was staying at this villa and a like infamous murder took place there. And then the other timeline takes place in present day where we are following a best friend duo who they're both authors and they kind of have this like strained kind of toxic female friendship, and they are staying at the same villa and nefarious things start happening. It's got that like toxic friendship obsession kind of vibe, and I really liked the more historical past chapters as well. Overall, I just had a great time with it. I don't think it was like the best written, and a lot of things just like kind of like one in one ear and out the other. It was very forgettable, but I had a fun time while I was reading it, and the ending is what moved this one up from just being a 3-star book, because the whole time I was reading this I was like, okay, it's fun, but like it's a 3-star, kind of like Truth or Dare that I just talked about. But then that ending, I loved it. I was surprised how much I really loved the ending of this book. So if you've been discouraged by bad reviews, but you like a good for her kind of ending, maybe don't write this one off too quickly. Next up, I have Daymares by Kenya Moss Dime, and this is a short horror story collection all about like mostly creepy kids or like weird baby situations, pregnancy, anything like that. And y'all know how I feel about creepy kid tropes. I love it. It is some of my favorite horror ever to read. So I was ready, and I ended up loving, like absolutely die-hard obsessed with about half of the stories in this collection. It had 7 stories total, and 4 of them I was totally obsessed with, 5 stars, but one of them was putting me to sleep. So that was an issue. And then the other 2 were just like kind of eh. There was one that was very weird, especially in its writing style. It just kind of like took a turn from how the rest of the book was showing up. And most of the stories were from the perspective of women, but there was one with a male perspective that I feel like the writing just didn't connect as much, or I didn't connect to that character as much. So it was about a 50-50 split, but I really wanted to give this book a higher rating than like a 2.5 or 3-star. So I stuck it at a 3.5 because most of the stories in here, the majority are so fun. They're 5-star stories, but just rating it as a whole, I would give it a 3.5, but it is on KU and it is a wonderful short story collection, especially if you love the creepy kid stuff. So highly recommend, and I can't wait again to dive into another female author in the horror genre. Next up, we have our biggest category, and that is 4-star books. There are 6 of them, so these are 6 fire recommendations. You're about to get back to back to back. Let's start with the series that I have literally been obsessed with this year. Definitely my favorite series of the moment, my current hyperfixation, and that is the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I'm going to talk about 2 of the books in that series when I talk about my 5-star reads, but I did have one of them fall into my 4-star reads as well. So in my 4-star category, I have Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And this is, like I said, in the Coffee Gets Cold series. It is the second one in the series, and it's a little bit different from the first one just because we're following different characters. A lot of the characters that we got like really emotionally attached to in the first book aren't there, so it takes a little bit of warming up, and then we kind of follow this cast of characters more closely in the third book. So this is kind of like a bridging novel between the first one and the third one, which, like I said, we're going to talk about in the 5 stars in this series, where it all takes place at this one cafe in Japan. And you sit in this cafe in a particular seat, and when you get poured coffee and you sip it, you can go into the future or into the past, and you can't change anything. You can just go there and time travel. But you have to finish your coffee before it gets cold, or you are stuck there in purgatory forever as a ghost. Yeah, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of stipulations. It's very tongue-in-cheek in that way, like it's very self-aware and kind of funny, but it has this depth of emotion that I just love, love, love. So second book in that series was a 4-star. Also this month, I read The Last House on Needless Street by Katrina, something like that, Ward. And I gotta say, okay, I know this book is like really great in theory, but for me, I saw the twist coming a mile away. Like, not even a mile away, eons. I saw this twist coming light years away. Okay, I probably read 2 chapters from each of these perspectives, and I knew exactly what was going on. Exactly. And here's the thing. I don't love what it did. I didn't love the twist. I get that it's clever. I get that it's done in a way that like is sensitive to a certain point. But for me, as a mental health professional, anytime mental health at all is used in a way where it's a twist, it makes me feel weird about it. Also, this is not accurate representation for the thing that's being talked about in the book. I'm obviously not going to spoil the twist. It's very difficult to talk about this book without spoiling the twist, but I will just say, if mental health rep being a little bit shoddy or a little bit touchy is triggering for you, I definitely would not read this book. Basically, if you don't know what this book is about, we're following 3 perspectives. This like man who's like creepy and a recluse, this little girl who lives with him who like we're definitely thinking is kidnapped because she was like living in his basement or like being locked in the freezer for certain periods of time, and like it's a very scary kidnapping situation. And then the last perspective that we're following is their cat. The cat that lives in the house with them and is like, oh yeah, guess my human is like a kidnapper or whatever. But she's more concerned with like living in her religion and reading the Bible than saving the kidnapping victim. So that's kind of the setup of the story. I had never heard anyone describe it in that much detail, so I hope that detail is not spoilery for you, but I just had no idea what the book was about. I feel like if I heard that description before I went in, I would have known a little bit better and I would have prioritized it more, because that sounds like a lot more of an interesting synopsis than what I've heard other people describe it as. But anyway, I digress. I still gave it 4 stars because listen, was it entertaining? Yes. Was it a good time? Yes. Was the writing phenomenal? Yes. Was the plot crafted in a way that was interesting, engaging, and clever? Yeah. Okay. So basically I loved everything about it except for what it was. I still wanted to give it 4 stars because I did have a good time with it, but I kind of accepted after chapter 6 when I figured out the twist, like, oh, okay, it's gonna go down this road and I can't take it seriously. I just can't. I can't because then I'm gonna get my feelings hurt and it's not gonna be a good time. So what I'm gonna do is take it all as one big fat joke. So then I'm sitting with that, and now as I'm speaking about it out loud, I'm like, well, kidnapping, and if you've read the book, the twist, it's not a joke. I don't know, maybe I'm too sensitive about this stuff, but again, I work in the mental health field, so I kind of have to be sensitive to this stuff. I have mixed thoughts about it, but it's a good book and it's really well written. So I'm going to leave you with that. Confused. I don't even know. The next 4-star read I want to talk about is The Last Invitation by Darby Kane. I love Darby Kane's writing style. She always hits it out of the park for thrillers for me. This one, we are following a group of women called the Sophie Foundation. So these are all very powerful, very influential women, and they kind of have the justice system behind the justice system. And it is like a good for her moment where all of these rich women get together and use their power and influence to take out one man every month. They have this meeting and they're like, all right, let's look at the profiles, who deserves to be taken out. And they literally kill a man and cover it up. So we are following that group and what happens when 2 unsuspecting women who don't know about the group get caught up with their goings on. One girl is trying to join the group, but once you get in, it's very difficult to get out kind of thing. It's high stakes, it's a legal thriller, it's fast paced, it's juicy, it's drama, it's good for her. It's literally everything. It's rich people drama, like all of these buzzwords that are like, ooh, I want to buy that. Ooh, I want to buy that. Ooh, I want to buy that for me. That is what this book is. And it definitely did not disappoint. It was such a good time. It didn't give me the 5-star feeling, but still highly, highly recommend it. It is just like no frills, right? This is a thriller that you don't have to think about. Like the Last House on Needle Street, I'm like conflicted. It's so deep. I'm like, what? This, not deep at all. Girl, just go read it. Next up, we have a YA thriller, and that is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. I absolutely loved this book. It was so fast paced. If you're looking for a book that takes place over the course of one night, like no exit vibes, high stakes, locked door, mystery, murder, blah, blah, that's this. So basically this group of, I think it's like 6 kids, like high school or early college kids, are going on this trip for either like summer or spring break or whatever, and they're renting this RV, and each one of them has a secret, and their RV ends up getting held hostage, and the person that's holding them hostage is like, hey, one of you knows a secret and you have to tell us what it is or we're literally gonna kill you all. So every single kid is like, fuck, it's my secret. But we're trying to figure out what the secret actually is, and along the way we're following this like high stakes hostage situation, and we're figuring out all the other juicy secrets too. This book is so well done. It is so well done. Holly Jackson's just phenomenal at building suspense and really crafting characters that you know exactly who they are. Like, I didn't love our main character in this, but the thing that saved it is I was rooting for her because I hated the villain. There's one boy, I like to call him, and I don't remember his name in the book, I just remember I called him in my head as I was reading Young Ben Shapiro. Like, the way that Ben Shapiro, when I hear him talk, whoa, I just want to, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, I just want to hit him. Like, he got that punchable face with the migrating lip filler. That's how I felt about this little child. Oh my God. Anything would happen, they would be like trying to be creative, trying to find a way out of the hostage situation. He'd be like, but hear me out. What if? But he would never like risk himself or like try to take a bullet. I hate him. I hate him. And the way that a YA thriller made me feel this strong emotion, that's how you know it's good writing and good character development. Like, Holly Jackson is phenomenal. The only reason, one and only reason why I took this down from a 5-star to a 4-star is because I wish that the violence and gore in this book was to the level of what I expected after reading the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I feel like the murders in that series were pretty graphic and creative, and I was looking forward to that like level of darkness that you would expect from like a high stakes hostage situation. But here's something about me that I'm figuring out. I do not like gun violence in my books. I just don't, I'm not entertained by it. To me, I'm not like, ooh, oh my God, no, not a gun. Like I am with a knife. No, I'm like, I don't like it. I just don't like it. It's no. to me. I look at a gun and I'm like, I can't even conceptualize what that is. I've never seen a gun. I've never held a gun. I can't speak to what that is. Like, it's just so foreign to me. The only context I see a gun is like on the news in like very, very sad, heartbreaking, scary situations. So I don't want to be reading that in like a light YA thriller context. You know what I mean? I wish that there was some kind of violence or gore other than the threat of being shot. That was just the one thing that kept taking me out of the story, where I'm like, can we get a butcher knife in here? Like, please God, can we get a machete? Like, can we get a chainsaw? Can I get anything that's like fun, gory vibes? And it didn't have that. Also, I think I expected the pacing to be a little bit faster than it was. Like, it definitely is still fast paced in the grand scheme of things, like compared to all thrillers in general, but it did drag a bit towards the middle when it got kind of repetitive. So still a wonderful book. Very, very well done. Perfect execution. I don't want to knock it for anything, but just those two personal things, be aware of it if you have those same weird things as me. And if you saw the first new release thriller vlog that I released this past month, I did two. If you missed them, I will link them above and below. You should watch them both for my full thoughts on these books. But in the first one, I read Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubica, and this one was just so fun for me. Like, this is just a classic domestic thriller. This is rich suburban people taking each other out and hiding secrets from each other and just being all around like shady. And I love that. I just love the drama. And if you are like me and you love the drama, I think you will like this one too. We are following a woman whose husband disappears. And we don't know if this man just like ran out on her. He has another family. We don't know if he got murdered. We don't know if he is possibly caught up in a bigger situation where he's trying to escape. We don't know what happened. We have no idea. All we know is that our main girl, her best friend, knows exactly what happened to her friend's husband. And the guilt is eating her alive. She want to tell her best friend, I know exactly what happened to your husband. But her husband is like, bestie, we can't do that. We can't do that. We got to save our own asses. We can't expose ourselves. So we have this whole intricate situation, this web of lies and secrets, and we're just trying to figure out what happened to this man. And along the way, like, different subplots come up. It's very like stalker obsession vibes, and I really liked it. So I highly recommend it. It's definitely not like literary masterpiece, okay? I don't think anyone was expecting this to be literary masterpiece. So it's not a 5-star, but it was great. And the last 4-star book I have to talk to you about is Into the Wolves' Den by John Athan. I loved this book. It felt very, very similar in its formula to The Groomer by John Athan. So if you read that on my recommendation or on someone else's recommendation and you liked it, definitely add this one to your list. It's very, very similar, where we are following the kidnapping of these 3 girls, and we're seeing what's happening to them as they get pulled into this like child trafficking, sex trafficking, child corn ring system thing. And then we're simultaneously following the father of 2 of the girls, and he is the police chief in town, and he's like, listen, no one's gonna get one by me. I will take my registered service weapon and light up some underground criminals. And usually I do not like following a cop. Usually if there's a cop in a thriller, I'm like, why are y'all trying to make me like this? It's not gonna work. Well, it worked. This time around, I was like, go sheriff, go boy, like go get him, because he was just on a mission to find his daughters. He threw all ethics out the window. I mean, not that that's like not typical of the police to just throw ethics out the window, but this man, like, he really went to a level where if I went missing, I would want my dad to go to this level too. Like, if I'm in a basement getting raped, I think my dad would come in guns blazing too. So it was just like this amazing father on a revenge mission. He was gonna find his daughters. And then simultaneously, we're following these like crazy people, and it's not just like, oh, we're kidnapping kids. No, 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 no. This is like a big underground ring for like rich people. And of course, this is extreme horror. John Nathan is an extreme horror author. Just do want to make that disclaimer, as I do in every video. Don't just jump into this if you have any trigger warnings at all whatsoever. It's pretty graphic. There's a lot of gore, there's a lot of violence, but I loved it in this one. I think it's really well done. I think John Nathan has a very specific talent for writing really horrifying things in a way that is really digestible and communicates the weight of it without feeling like he's taking it, you know, lightly at all. Like, there are definitely funny moments in this book, like darkly comedic moments, and it kind of goes off the rails at the end, which I loved, but it wasn't ever making a joke of this serious subject matter. And I just think that is so hard to capture. I mean, I've read so many extreme horror books that try to do that, and they do not succeed. And the more that I talk about this, the more that I want to raise my rating. I don't know why I rated this a 4-star in the heat of the moment. Maybe it's because it did feel so similar to The Groomer, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, this feels like a 4.5 star. I don't know. I highly recommend it. It was great. Next up, I do have a 4.5 star book, and that is a little horror novella by the name of Ring Shout by P. Deli Clark. Y'all, this book is so good. I don't know why I got it in my mind that this was a fantasy book, because I wish I would have read this months ago. I'm gonna let you know right now. If you've heard that this is like fantasy, fantastical, blah, 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 no. It has some of those vibes, but this is a horror book. And this is kind of like, I don't know, it's very unique because the setup is like, it feels like an old-timey scenario because we're following this like very starkly segregated world where the KKK is in effect. So like, not that the KKK is not in effect now, but like it feels like when you open a textbook and you see the like black and white photos of everyone in the KKK things and you're like, oh, hello? It's terrifying. So it's that, but it's also like set in the future. Like it's like this futuristic world. I don't know. It simultaneously feels like steampunk, futuristic, apocalyptic hellscape, and also like old-timey, like Daisy Jane down at the fucking Cracker Barrel is like churning butter. Like it has the weirdest juxtaposition where it can really be taking place in any time. And like, I think that's the effect. That is like the intended effect, is like, this could be at any moment in time. This could be in the past. This could be in the future. This could be now. It is now. Oh, like, oh my God. Just talking about this book gets me so excited because it is so, so great. So in this world, there are these like mutated monsters of people, which are basically just like KKK members. Like, they call them kluxes, and they're like, okay, is this person just like a white supremacist human, or is this a klux? And there's this group of 3 badass black women who are like, we're going to take them out. We're assassins. We're going to take out all these KKK crazy people and basically save the world. And they're kind of like superhero vibes. And I think that is where the fantasy thing came in, is because I heard that and I was like, I am not about to read a fucking superhero book. Like, you're never gonna catch me at a Marvel movie. Ant-Man, no, could never. But these 3 women, this is my Joker. I'm just kidding. But I really liked the way that they would just like kick ass and take names. Like, I was obsessed with it. The way that the story unfolds is so, so interesting. I was highlighting paragraphs on my freaking Kindle. Like, I'm obsessed with this book. But then you're probably wondering, Haley, why did you rate it 4.5 instead of 5 stars? Well, here's the thing. It's the pacing for me. The pacing for me was truly the issue because, like I said, this is a novella. Okay, this is a fairly short book, but why did it take me days to read? It was just so long. And I think a part of it was the like historical feeling. Even some of it was written in a way that had that like historical language of like, I don't know, just like the way that fucking, what is that old ass book? To Kill a Mockingbird. Like the way that that is written, it kind of has some of that in the writing style. And I think that's just not for me. I just want something a little bit straightforward. Okay? Miss Mary Kubica, the way that she's like, Jenny went to the store, she walked in the door and she bought a knife. That is the writing style that appeals to me in a fast-paced, like we're moving book, especially with horror. And Ring Shout is not that. Okay, it's probably better than that for most people because it's like actually gorgeous writing. But for me, it really slowed down the pace, and also the historical language slowed down the pace. I wanted it to just move at a little bit faster because a lot of the action was going like breakneck speed. And then the reading experience was like, why is it taking me 45 minutes to read a chapter of a novella? I'm a little confused. So that's the only thing that held me back from giving it a 5-star. But other than that, the characters were amazing. The plot was amazing. The commentary was amazing. I love the ending. Read it. Next up, we're going to dive into my 5 stars, my top 3 favorite books of the month. So before your memory fades, let's just talk about this one because this is what I mentioned, the 3rd book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I guess that I had put the 1st book in the series in my previous wrap up. I guess I read it at the very end of December and not in January, but I did read the 3rd book in January, and this was an easy 5-star for me. We're just following, again, the cafe, little vignettes of people traveling backwards and forwards in time and having these emotional experiences. It relates to your own life. It has that commentary aspect. It has the magical realism that I love, endearing characters. It's phenomenal. If you haven't read it yet, you need to, and I believe that it's on KU. My second favorite book of the month is Someone Had to Do It by Amber and Danielle Brown. Y'all, this was possibly the easiest 5-star I've ever given to a thriller. When I say I'm a character-driven reader, this is what I mean. It doesn't have to be plotless. It doesn't have to be a character study that takes you a million years to read and is boring as shit. No, it just means that the characters have to be well-developed, placed in a clever, dynamic situation that shows all the different nuances in their selves. So before I keep raving about this book, I should probably tell you what it's about. We are following this girl named Brandy, and she is an intern at this New York fashion house. She's a young Black girl. She's trying to come up and make her way in the world. And obviously all the cards are stacked against her. And then she runs into this girl named Taylor, right? That's her name? Yeah, Taylor Van Doren. And she's giving very much Serena van der Woodsen vibes. She is the it girl. Her life is kind of a mess. She's kind of a bitch, but she doesn't care. And their paths converge, Brandy and Taylor. And we see these two women who are both, we agree with them sometimes, we disagree with them other times. For the most part, we are seeing Taylor as the villain and Brandy as the sympathetic main character, but we can see sides to both of them that we like and that we don't like, and they both make questionable choices at different points in the book. I think this has the Jennifer Hillier effect though, where we're seeing these morally gray women, specifically with Taylor's character. She's very morally gray, but we just have an understanding for why she is the way she is. And even with Brandy, she'll make some decisions sometimes that I'm like, girl, now you compromising your morals for a Birkin. What's happening? But then you're totally understand where she's coming from. I don't know. These characters, it's just so interesting to watch them converge. And the twists that were happening in this book, do not let me convince you that this is all character driven. If you're a twisty plot girl, this is for you. It has the drama, it has the juice, and you will not see anything coming at any point in this book because the plot is insane. Basically, the way that these two girls' lives converge is Brandy overhears Taylor talking about planning her father's murder at a party. And she's like, oh, this influencer is literally off the deep end. And Taylor's like, oh, hell no, you are not going to spoil my murder plot. And things go from there. There's also boy drama. There's also random light smut, which I very much enjoyed. And yeah, I love everything about this book. So if you haven't bought it yet, you need to go buy it immediately. The audio is also really, really well done. I listened to that along with reading the physical copy, and it is the perfect way to read it. I'm obsessed. Anything these ladies write, I will pick up immediately. Also, this was blurbed by Lane Fargo and Lucinda Berry, two of my favorite authors, so if your reading taste is anywhere similar to mine, you have to go pick this up. Also, follow Amber and Danielle on Instagram because I did. Their feed is like very aesthetically pleasing and like it just has the vibe. Like when I tell you these women understand the vibe, they just know. They just know the vibe. So yeah, this is probably going to be in my best books of the year. I'm going to call it right now. And another book that somehow topped that one and will 100% be in my favorites of the year is We Spread by Ian Reid. This was my Patreon Pretty Girl Book Club pick for the month of January, and I was so happy that I ended up loving our pick this much that it's my favorite book of the month. In this book, we are following this old lady named Penny, and we are literally just watching her cognitive deterioration take place. She has like dementia, Alzheimer's, something of the sort, but she's not truly aware that that's what's going on. Obviously, that's like a hallmark of the illness, is that lack of insight, but she's paranoid that something nefarious is going on at the care center where she lives. And we're going on this journey with her to the point where we start to question, is it just this paranoid lady with Alzheimer's that we're following, or is there something going on at this facility? And obviously no spoilers, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but we had such a great discussion about this book in my book club. We were having revelations, people who came in saying, oh yeah, I'm going to rate it like 3 stars. By the end, we're like, it's a 5-star book. Like, this book has a lot going for it, not only in plot, not only in the unique structure, not only in the way that you will lose time and lose where you are in the world while you're reading this book because of the way that it's written. It's written in a very delirious, almost like fever dream kind of way. Not only that, but just the commentary and the personal stuff that I took away from it. I think there's a lot in here about, like, obviously dementia, Alzheimer's, but grief and just like getting old in general and how that's like the real horror of it all. If any of that would be triggering to you, definitely like proceed with caution, but the commentary is so great. The plot is great. The characters are great. Like, I cannot recommend it any more than that, girl. It's everything. If you're going to take any recommendations from this video, here they are. Take this series, this thriller, this horror. Like, this is the best that I have to offer you. I love talking about good books. I love ending my wrap up talking about my very favorite books of the month. It's just so satisfying every time. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about all 16 books that I read this past month. And thank you again to Aura for sponsoring this video. Remember to go down below and click that link and get your 2-week free trial of Aura and protect all of your information and your loved ones. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!